From its opening minutes with an augmented cyber psycho rampaging and popping heads like balloons, Cyberpunk Edgerunners holds nothing back in its depiction of Night City, a futuristic yet brutal city ruled by corporations that care more about profit than the struggling people and crime-filled streets below their high-rise towers. It's a city so filled with crime and debauchery that its residents don't even bat an eye at the terrible events unfolding around them. A city where its people can augment their physical or mental abilities with cybernetics, with some becoming more machine than human and losing any semblance of their humanity as they find themselves addicted to the power. It's in this city that we meet David, a kid from the streets who becomes a cyberpunk to find a purpose in life. And it's underneath the violence and despair permeating this city that we get a story interspersed with a genuine, if foolish, hope for things to change, for a better future, for the chance to accomplish a dream even with the insurmountable walls in the way. A happy ending? Here, for folks like us? Wrong city, wrong people. Johnny Silverhand's quote from the Cyberpunk 2077 game can succinctly summarize the experience of the Cyberpunk Edgerunners anime. Even from the first episode, things start to go south, and it's pretty obvious what direction the story will ultimately end up going. This is reinforced by the excellent atmosphere Trigger crafts that digs its nails into you and doesn't let go until the final credits roll. Experiencing the gritty underworld of Night City exudes this pervasive sense of melancholy and impending doom, which can feel oppressive at times. Though you like the characters and want them to be successful, it constantly gives the impression that things rarely ever go how you want, and making the most of the ride so you don't leave with regret is what counts. But even despite this overwhelming darker tone, there are bright spots that occasionally illuminate the darkness. Finding a place you belong, a home to go back to, a person to share your life with, and a dream to achieve. Through our time with David and the rest of the crew, we get to see how each of these glimmers of hope can spur someone on even in the darkest of times. After experiencing a tragedy and having his life turned upside down, David ends up in the possession of a military-grade augment. With nothing left to lose, he throws himself headfirst into working as an edgerunner, essentially an augmented mercenary doing dirty work as part of a crew. The story is intense, fast-paced, and gritty, picking up quickly and continuing to raise the stakes as it barrels towards its bloody and inevitable conclusion. Despite it only being 10 episodes long, I still felt that across its two distinct arcs, it told an interesting, succinct story full of uncompromising, gory action, big set pieces, poignant emotional scenes, and diverse characters with their own motivations and interests. Now, was it perfect? Of course not, but nothing truly is. Personally, I found the first arc spanning the first 6 episodes more engaging than the second arc, and as a whole, I think that the series' biggest con is that it isn't longer. I would have preferred a 2-core series, or maybe even just 12 to 13 episodes, to give us more time to spend with the characters and to better flesh them out to make the big and emotional scenes hit even harder. But even despite the limited 10-episode runtime they were allotted, I believe Trigger still did an excellent job crafting this story and the characters who go on it, and it was a high adrenaline romp that had me on the edge of my seat for much of it. That brings me to the characters, which were the biggest surprise of the series to me. I didn't expect to get anywhere near as attached as I did to a few of them given the short length of Edgerunners, but it just goes to show how strong their character writing was to make them feel genuine and likable. They establish clear personalities, motivations, and relationships between the main players, with the strongest and most interesting being David, Lucy, Maine, and Rebecca. And that made it all the more impactful as you experience their journey as they get in over their heads and descend into hell together. It all loops back around to the characters finding that shard of hope and glint of a dream to spur them on. David is dealt a rough hand in life but wants to be accepted and feel needed, to help others achieve their dreams. Lucy has a mysterious past and trouble opening up to others, but wants to find that someone she can connect with and to achieve her dream of going to the moon. Maine may look rough around the edges but really cares about his crew and wants the best for them. And Rebecca seems crazy and psychotic, but is surprisingly perceptive and willing to reach out. Other characters feel a bit more archetypal, but even so are enjoyable members of the cast who I was glad to get to know and have along for the ride. Whether it be the quickly established romance between David and Lucy or the bonds formed between David and other members of the crew, Cyberpunk Edgerunners made me genuinely care for many of them, which made that oppressive atmosphere from before grip into me harder as I desperately wished for everyone to stay safe despite the cruel reality of Night City. Of course, I also need to praise the production, which is the typical high-quality Trigger fare. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a feast for the eyes and ears alike. Night City and its residents are teeming with visual flair. The interesting use of color, strong lighting, and excellent art all extend to the character designs, an area I've always thought Trigger to be one of the best of the industry in. Every character feels distinctive and memorable, featuring plenty of varied hairstyles, body types, colors, and body augmentations that give each character something unique to discern them with. All of this flair and design ultimately serves as the base for Trigger's typical dynamic action animation, which is brought even more to the forefront of Edgerunners thanks to the augmentations characters possess to allow them to do unique things. Slowing down and speeding up time, feinting and dodging, turning their body into various weapons, hacking into things to turn the tide of battle, and more. There's always something happening or otherwise interesting going on in the many firefights. Bullets flying and bouncing, cars and vehicles exploding, multiple characters acting independently, and so on. However, this over-the-top and chaotic action is balanced by the quieter moments and expressive character animation. The way characters react feels natural and genuine thanks to how expressive, or at times inexpressive, they are. From expressions of rage to quiet introspection, making full use of shifting eyes and other body language, we're able to quickly deduce how a character is feeling in a given situation based on how they're acting. I also really liked the trippy way Trigger depicts the moment someone goes psycho and loses their humanity. This brings us to the audio piece of production. The voice acting for every character seems to perfectly complement their personalities, reinforcing the distinct designs. I was particularly impressed with Ken as David, Aoi Yuki as Lucy, and Tomoyo Kurosawa as Rebecca, especially with Kurosawa, who I've never heard in such a crazy, outlandish role before. All of the characters feature some excellent range that helps to establish their characters' personalities and make them feel real. On the music side of things, the soundtrack features a heavy use of electronic elements and bass, which complement the futuristic setting well. And those inserts, man. Cyberpunk has some of the best insert songs that I've heard in a non-music anime recently, with frequent and diverse use of inserts to accompany just about anything, be it setting the tone of the city and characters, keeping your eyes glued to the screen during an intense action scene, or tearing at you during an emotional climax. My personal favorite was I Really Want to Stay at Your House and how it was used in the final episode, as well as Who's Ready for Tomorrow from the first episode. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is insane in all of the right ways. A show that takes no prisoners in depicting the brutal world of Night City as our cast fight to make a living and survive as Edgerunners. The series is uncompromising in its over-the-top, gory violence, and for a world as dark as Cyberpunk, it was great to have a fully uncensored show that didn't shy away from the gore, sex, violence, and despair. None of it felt thrown in for the sake of it. Rather, it felt natural in establishing what it's truly like to live in Night City and be a cyberpunk. It's a well-crafted, unique anime in an interesting world, but even despite the incredible audio-visual experience thanks to Trigger's production, it's the characters and atmosphere that will stick with me the longest. Telling the story of a group of people who can't help but have dreams even though the odds are always stacked against them, I wanted to see them succeed against the seemingly omnipotent city full of despair and melancholy. When the final credits rolled, I felt empty inside, but not necessarily in a bad way. David seeks to accomplish all the dreams he took on, albeit not in the way those people wanted them to happen. But to David, that's enough. He started out as a nobody, and then he did things those people never thought possible. He broke through that insurmountable wall. He made a difference. And for a place like Night City, that's more than you could ever ask for. With the conclusion of David, Lucy, and the rest of the crew's story, the legend of their exploits will certainly carry on. If not with the other cyberpunks in Night City, then at least with us, who were with them until the very end. And Night City keeps on moving, setting up another turn for the next dreamer.